all we can say and all the report says is that they didn't seek the information. That's the real shock in this. You know, the kind of political subterfuge that might be dreadfully interesting in, you know, the tea rooms of the House of Commons is irrelevant. The fact is they did not seek to understand the impact or scale or scope of the interference in previous political events, including the EU referendum. They should now do that so that we can understand what it entailed, what impact it may or may not have had, what influence it may or may not have had, and to work out how to protect the efficacy of the democratic process going forward. The quote you read out, that if they'd done the same investigation, they'd have reached the same conclusions, that's really damning of the government subsequent failure not to undertake that investigation or assessment. You know, it's not that they didn't know by then what was going on in other parts of the world. And we still are left flummoxed as to understand why no one, as one of your colleagues asked earlier, lacked the curiosity to say, are we fully protected here? What's going on? And what more needs to be done to beef up, particularly, the cyber defences? When it comes to national security, when it comes to cyber security, as I've just laid out, covering multiple departments, this should have been a cabinet decision. In one sense, whether it was Cameron or May or Johnston at the helm is almost irrelevant. The action required to be taken to assess and identify the threat and put in place the defences should have been undertaken by government with a decision made at a cabinet level, and that appears to us simply not to have happened.
I mean, China's got a lot of attention in the last few months, certainly within Parliament. One could ask why similar questions aren't being asked around Russia's involvement. And I think the point I would make is that I think the Russian ambassador said the weekend that he wants good relationships with the UK. I personally would agree with that. I think most people would agree with that. But that can only be achieved if Russia applies, and works by the international rules-based order which we all accept. And I think without that, Russia continues to be a threat to the UK. And this is why it's remarkable that the government haven't looked at what involvement they've had in terms of previous elections, apart from, say, the late WMS last week on the 2019 general election. And I think the really serious issue that this report puts forward is that, as I said earlier on, democracy is a very precious thing, which I think the report refers to. We need to do what we can to protect it. And the government has not done that. And that's why, we suggest as a matter of urgency it is looked at, because we're not dealing here with an adversary who is going to go away soon. Why ministers chose not to do that and actually learn the lessons and possibly, if necessary, change things, that's one you've got to address to them.